So Tim, no breakfast. You're not a breakfast guy?
No, I don't know why. I just stopped eating breakfast a while ago.
There's no reason for it. There's just don't do it.
No,
No health reasons.
No health reasons.
No optimizations. No biohacking.
No, I mean, it kind of slows me down. I think it goes back to like, I don't know, high school, not having enough time in the morning. And, and same with college, just rushing to class. And so I just never picked up anything and ate along the way.
Gotcha. So you must be young enough to the point where you still reference high school and college. Because I'm so far away from those two things that I can't even.
I'm far away. I'm far away too. I'm just trying to figure out like how it started. And
gotcha.
So no, I rarely ever do unless someone's like, I don't know, talking about their kids, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those days.
So you're not an intermittent faster. You don't intermittent fast, or do your sort of eating windows, or do you practice a special diet of any sort?
I mean, I intermittent fast, but not knowingly.
Okay.
I've been doing it like half my life before it was a thing, just because I don't eat breakfast. I usually skip lunch and then I just eat dinner. And so it kind of started happening this way a long time ago, because on weekends I would do it, right? On weekends I would just be so focused on whatever I was working on, Homelab, gaming, World of Warcraft, you name it, that I would just say, I can make it to dinner, and so I used to do that on the weekends, and then ever since like work from home, it kind of carried over. So
right on.
So it's just dinner for me, a big dinner.
What do you do for, I guess, if you're not eating anything, are you just drinking water?
I am, yeah.
Just water only.
Water only. I mean,
no coffee?
Coffee. Yeah, you got me there. Yeah. So wake up, 2 cups of coffee, Nalgene of water, and then probably 2 or 3 more of these throughout the day.
Okay.
Then it's dinner time. And then probably 1 or 2 more of these.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, every now and then I grab a handful of nuts, like I just did right before we started. So
yeah, right on. Nuts are good. Okay, so you're a healthy eater then, it seems.
I mean, I guess so.
Nuts are your snack versus a candy bar, or let's say some gummies or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like if we had candy in the house, it'd be gone. Actually, when I went down to the cupboard just a second ago, my wife had chocolate covered almonds in there. I'm like, what is going on? Like if I knew about these, they'd be half gone by now.
Oh man, yes, I am a sucker for chocolate covered almonds. Or pecans.
Yeah.
I prefer pecans because almonds, are, they can crack your teeth,
Yeah.
Unless they're roasted and they're like a little soft.
I just had chocolate covered pecans, no cashews, chocolate covered cashews with sea salt the first time ever last week. And I was like, these are so great. But it's I got a thing for candy. I definitely have a sweet tooth. Like, that's my wife. She's like, oh my gosh. Like, she has to take it away from me.
Let me make a recommendation on pecans, just in case. Now, do you say pecan or do you say pecan?
Pecans. I see. I do, but I don't enunciate it like you do. So I say pecan.
Pecan. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it pecan pie?
Yeah, pecan pie. Yeah, now I'm
it's not pecan pie, because some people say pecan pie, and those are not in Texans.
No, I'm pecan.
I live here in Texas, but I'm a Yankee, as they say. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Oh,
and so I never really cared how you said pecan, but Texans really care, and so you can't say pecan pie. You have to say pecan pie.
Wow, I thought pecan would have been a Southern way of saying it.
It's Southern, but it's not Texan.
Oh, gotcha.
So Texas is South, but it's not Southern.
That's right. Gotcha.
Southern is kind of like, Louisiana and East.
Yeah.
And not Florida. So basically Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, that's what is considered the South. Kentucky, of course, Tennessee. Those are the Southern states. Texas is Southern, but not quite Southern. In that regard, at least.
No, it's funny you mentioned that because like Indiana, I feel like is like half Southern. So I'm from Indiana originally,
right?
But I'm from the Northwest near Chicago, but Indiana, is this
long state. It's a tall state.
Man, it's like nine hours to drive through it or something crazy like that. I don't know, but some people in Indiana have a Southern accent, and like growing up, some people would have the southern accent, and I'm like, dude, you live like 2 blocks from me. How did this happen? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like
where did it go wrong?
No, I'm not saying it went wrong. I'm just saying, like, somehow my family got the Midwest, the Chicago style accent, and 2 blocks down, some people got a southern accent. So I mean, it probably has to do with their upbringing and their family, but that's how diverse like accents are in Indiana, because as you get around Indianapolis, you're either north or south. I think that's the border.
Well, let me make a recommendation on these pecans, because I say pecans, and then we'll get into some Homelab stuff and maybe some AI Homelab stuff. We'll see, if we get a little crazy around here. The brand I want to recommend is a Texas brand. It's a family-operated brand called Berdoll, Berdoll.
Berdoll, I like
the best pecans you'll ever have. You can just get the pecans for Christmas if you want. You can get a bag, or you can get the chocolate covered ones, whichever flavor you want to go with. But their pecans are legit the best pecans ever. This is not sponsored, just a tried and true, loved, beloved Texas brand called Berdoll. And
I'll have to check it out.
Damn you, Buc-ee's, for dropping them. Buc-ee's is a big. Have you ever heard of Buc-ee's?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can't take you there in this podcast. We'll have to do it as an after show or something like that. But Buc-ee's is not a gas station. It is a destination. Let me just say, it's on most Texas highways. It's a beloved Texas brand, Buc-ee's. Oh, Tim, I'm gonna teach you some things, man. I'm gonna teach you some things. All right, let's get into the meat of the matter. We're friends. We're talking about Homelab. We're talking about some Creator PC stuff, maybe some Linux Workstation, some AI. You just did a hardware tour, a software tour, what's practical to run as AI in your Homelab / home, whatever. Where should we begin? Where should we begin at the state? What is the state of Homelab as you see it going into 2025? Is it growing? Is it stagnating? Is it more diversified? What's the state of Homelab?
No, I think it's growing. And I think I said this last year, that I think it's growing. And I think last year I said that we'd see a trend towards more mini PCs. And I think that's right. And true. We definitely will. And we are still seeing it. So I think it's still growing. I think the trend is growing because a lot of people are saying, either they want to host stuff at home, they want data sovereignty. Probably not a majority of people, but a lot of people will start having their movie collection at home. And then, that's a gateway to get into home labbing, because like me, that's kind of how I started. I want to have a media server. I have this extra compute. What else can I do? What else can I throw on there? And then all of a sudden you have a server rack in your basement. So I think it's still growing. I think it is. And, Geerling, just a little bit ago, Jeff Geerling, had a video on, 10-inch mini racks, which I have a couple up there behind me. And, I think that kind of opened up the doors for a lot of people to say, like, hey, I don't need a full-blown PC. I don't need a big server. I can, have a whole entire home lab in 4U of rack space that fits on my desk. As you can see, I have 2 mini server racks back there. And so I think, that's going to be a bigger trend. It already is a big trend over in Europe, 10-inch racks. But in the US, they're just starting to catch on.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of the massive rack. Major power too, having to have this massive UPS to deal with it. I feel like it was a good start, right? Homelab kind of began by bringing what was enterprise to the home to play with it.
That's right.
Right? Repurposing older enterprise servers, older enterprise workstations, desktops, etc., because there wasn't a lot happening. Now there's a lot of new cases out there. Fractal is going crazy with all their different designs. There's so many others out there that can compare. Silverstone is one of my other favorite brands. I think when I was watching your Linux build, I think we are using the same, what do you call that, case, I guess? Silverstone RM42502, I believe is what it was.
Well,
what are you using for that? We're jumping the gun a little bit, but
yeah, no, that one is just, I don't even remember the brand name. Like it's like a kind of not a popular brand for that server.
It wasn't a Silverstone?
No, although
very similar.
Yeah, no, it's actually right there behind me. I'm actually going to probably move that into a Sliger case, and Sliger cases are super awesome. They're one of the few that focus on rack mount systems. And yeah, I agree. Like, I over-indexed in the beginning on compute. I thought, I need, used enterprise servers, decently priced, cheap in general. But most of the time that's way overkill on compute and power and everything else, heat, noise, you name it. And so, I reeled it back, I don't know, 2 years ago, and moved to mini PCs for my Kubernetes cluster and some of the things that I'm hosting at home. And even before that, I got 1U servers and kind of, I kind of toned it back a little bit even before I moved to those mini PCs. So yeah, it's wild. But at the same time, like me personally, I'd rather have my stuff in a rack. So having my stuff in a rack doesn't make it, high energy or high power usage. Because I have a lot of stuff in my rack right now, and I think I'm like at 500 watts, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but
it's a lot.
Nowhere near like what it could be or what it was, 800-900. And so for me personally, I like putting things in a rack because it keeps things organized. It keeps things where they need to be. Cords, have to go in a certain spot. Power has to go in a certain spot. These machines have to stack in a certain way. And when I close the doors on the server rack, there can't be anything hanging out. So for me personally, I like to compartmentalize all of that in one space. Like, that's how my workstation is right here. I mean, I have a Mac Studio that's racked just because I don't want to have to deal with cords and all of that. I want it to look nice and give it I don't know, a proper place to put it. Otherwise it'd be sitting on the floor or some shelf and who knows. But
yeah, I made a mistake actually when I mentioned my Silverstone. I think it was, not that you might know this because you said it's not a Silverstone, but it's a Silverstone RM44. That's actually my Plex server case. It's got 3 fans in the front, great ventilation, just in case I spin up that 4K footage and need to transcode it to 17 clients, all that good stuff to manage the cooling of it. But it's a Silverstone RM44, and it's a 4U case, and I'm the same. My preference is rack mount, really. And if I can't rack mount it, it might look nice. Like, for example, the Fractal Design North, a lot of people are liking that, but I'm like, can I get a rack mount version of that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I would all day.
Yeah, all day.
Are you there with me on that one?
Oh yeah, man. Metal, wood, and stone is all you need.
Right? A little wood is just so nice.
I mean, if it says Fractal and it has wood in it, I automatically like anything that they post. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they have great designers there. I like it. Yeah, definitely minimal.
Do you pay attention to case designers? I know a lot of people that like really steep themselves. You're a YouTuber, you're a creator. Do you get into that realm of like, I pay attention to a case designer, and when they go from XYZ company to Fractal and they design their next case, I'm on it. Is that the kind of person you are? Or are you just sort of like, nah?
No, I just know what I like when I see it. And, and embarrassingly, maybe I don't know the names of any of the designers who do this stuff. I know that there's a great designer behind all of this stuff, but, for the most part, I just see the brand, where it lands. So no, I couldn't tell you any designer's name.
Well, good for you. You're not that deep then. What is it that motivates you to do what you do? I mean, I think did you begin this as a sort of a side gig to a hobby because you were a software developer and you still are, but you kind of like inched into this and, maybe did it well and got popular and had some good thoughts. And then you're like, man, this is kind of cool. Is that kind of your story, or what makes you get up in the morning and every day make content?
Yeah, so that is kind of how it happened. Like, I've been doing this as a hobby for a long time. Instead of home labbing, I'm starting to call it infrastructure as a hobby. That's what it has been for me for a long time. I did infrastructure for work, but then, as you mentioned, got into software development. I've been a software developer for a long time now. So now infrastructure is now my hobby. So, everything I do at work is cloud, 100% cloud, 100%, virtual. Like, I don't touch anything except for my laptop. And so I always have this itch for an infrastructure. And it comes from 2 things. 1, the media server that I mentioned earlier, but 2, just having an access point and a router at home. I mean, anyone can look at their access point router and say like, either they love it or they hate it, and if they say they hate it, it's probably rented and from whoever their ISP is. If they say they love it, they put some time into it and bought their own. And that's kind of where, I like to play, is like a little bit in the networking and somewhat in compute and storage. And so even if I, weren't totally in, as I am now, I'd still be doing this kind of stuff. So,
okay.
But the thing that motivates me in the morning to get up, like this morning, I thought, I get to play with this stuff. As soon as I opened my eyes, I thought, sweet, did my print job complete on my 3D printer? Because I need that stuff for, these mini racks behind me. That's one thing I got into the last 6 months is 3D printing, or actually 2 months 3D printing. I'm in deep, but
is that right?
Oh man, there's it's wild. But that's what gets me up in the morning. I think just having a variety of stuff to work on. If it's not hardware, it's definitely software. Whether it's writing software or using software. I'm in this kind of weird space where I can write software, and I do. And I build that software and run it in my Homelab. But I also use software from other companies, whether it be closed or open source, in my Homelab. I have hardware that I built and scrapped together myself for custom builds. And then I have hardware from, vendors that's full solutions that I use. And so, I kind of play in that world. So if there's a Venn diagram of all of that, that's what I like is, hardware, software, open source, closed source, it doesn't matter. Closed source, it has to be a really compelling story and a good solution, better than anything out there. But, and if, that's why some of that stuff might be closed, is because, they're making a profit and they're making a good product. And I'm not afraid to support good products. So, but yeah, that's what gets me going is really just playing with stuff and thinking about, what I'm going to tell people about the stuff that I'm working on. That's kind of what goes through my head.
Do you go as far as writing scripts too? Do you what's your process? Give me a 1 minute, 2 minute version of like how you do what you do.
Oh man.
Can you compress it into 2 minutes, or is it not? That's too hard.
I can. Cut me off if I go too long.
No, you can go far if you want to. I was just kind of giving you just a limit.
I could talk all day. I used to wing it. And that was fun, except for, I was messing up every other sentence, and it got super painful to edit later. And so for me, writing a script was more of an optimization for later. So I didn't have to edit longer. And I noticed the more I messed up, the longer I'd have to edit. So I started writing scripts. So I have 2 or 3 ways that I do it. Sometimes I'll have a script. Sometimes I'll have an outline. Depends on the topic, right? If it's a tutorial, outline. Intro has a script, tutorial, an outline, outro has a script. That's kind of how I work now. But there are other videos where I have a full script. So how does it start? Well, I have a list of ideas. Every video I kind of vote in my head what's next. I have commitments from external commitments, maybe from brands. I have the things that I want to do, and then I have the things that I kind of think will do well. And then I have the things that are relevant, super relevant to right now. And so I have to kind of juggle that. And so I usually pick one of those. I start, depending on the topic, I'll either start experimenting so I can think through what I'm going to say as I'm doing it. Or I dive right into writing because I know what I'm going to say. I'll film it. I do use a teleprompter if I need to. And then, I'll start editing. While I'm editing, I kind of think of what the thumbnail is going to be. And while I'm editing, I'm trying to think like, are there pieces I can cut out to be more concise?
Right.
Because sometimes even if I review the script that I'm going to record, there are still things that slip in that I think later on when I'm editing and I don't need to say. And then, then it's a, polish it up, put effects on it, upload, you name it, subtitles, thumbnails, 3 thumbnails now for ABC testing. It's tough. Yeah. YouTube's a lot of work, and I'm not complaining at all. It's more work than people think it is.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a lot of iterating. And I think that you mean by work is like even the ABC testing, that's iterations. Like which one is the one that makes people really excited about this video or connects with the people that should watch it. Are you tapping into the iPhone camera at all? Or are you strictly staying like mirrorless or DSLR? Like, what's your flavor of how you shoot? You got any preferences?
I use kind of whatever works. So I have now I have 2 cameras that I work with, actually 3. So if I'm doing top down kind of stuff, it's back there. That one's mounted because I replaced it with this one. This is an Sony mirrorless FX30 camera line. I'm not a huge photographer. I realize that a lot of people that are in YouTube are like former photographers or former, camera people, or, not me. I'm a tech person who turns my camera on. So anyways, I have that. And then my iPhone is actually really good at shooting B-roll. I have some videos where 90% of it's iPhone and no one ever balks at it one bit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, being able to, record this easily, as long as I have enough light, it has stabilization built in. Like no one even knows. I know because I know what to look for. But no one knows or no one cares. And to be able to do that is game changer. I really wish mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras would kind of catch up, and not so much on the optics because they're way beyond, but more so on connectivity. Like, store stuff, automatically send it somewhere when I'm done, or even do, NDI, send it over the network somewhere to my NAS so I don't even have to worry about, SD cards or anything anymore. So I don't know. I'm hoping cameras take a huge leap at some point. I mean, they're already there. Like super, expensive high-end cameras can do all of that. I just feel like, I don't know, the interface is just so old. Whenever you look at a camera, the interface is just so bad and so old.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's prime for disruption, self-disruption, hopefully. I'd love to see maybe even Ethernet cable, on a camera, like connect it.
Yeah, that's
real-time bandwidth, 10 gigabit, 100 gigabit, 50 gigabit, whatever you got on your network, straight to your NAS,
Yeah, that's right.
Direct record like a computer. It is a computer. Why not be a computer?
I agree. And it would be awesome. So if we're going to go down this path, make them as dumb as possible and then put software on my machine so that I can push software to it. Basically a controller, you make the camera dumb, and then, and then make some kind of software smart. So you can just push settings and push everything to that camera. It just captures it and dumps the video wherever you want. But yeah, similar to, access points, right? They're pretty dumb. Use a nice GUI to configure them, push settings to it, software defined network. I want camera defined. No, I don't know. Software defined cameras. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'll vote on that if you can get that bill passed.
Yeah, no, the camera makers will not have it because then they become a commodity, right?
Yeah, they got to control the market. It's all about my processor and my, Yeah, I mean, it's a game for sure.
Yeah, I don't blame them. But
do you one more thing on the iPhone style shooting? Do you do just a straight camera application, or do you do something else? Like the Blackmagic, I think, has a pretty sophisticated where you can mess with the f-stop and shutter speed. Like, do you go crazy with it, or you just sort of like open up camera app and you're done?
Yeah. So for me, it's camera app auto, and I'm done. I'm
keep it simple.
Yeah. So I'm the one thing I do use, you can kind of see it back there, is my gimbal. So the DJI gimbal back there, and they have their camera app built in too. But I don't change the settings. I just hit record and it's auto. It burns me sometimes on the white balance and stuff like that. But I start thinking about like my goal this year is to turn around content quicker, right? And so I need to stop sweating the small stuff. That's big for me. Like I was just talking about white balance. No one is going to care about the white balance. And if they care about the white balance being a little bit off, they're either super interested or maybe not the target audience. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or it's that obvious. And so I need to stop sweating the small stuff on a lot of my videos and just get them out quicker. That's a trend I see too. Like people are starting to gravitate more and more towards less polished, more informal, more spur of the moment type videos, and so I kind of do a bit of all three. And so, just trying to figure that out for this year. I just want to be able to turn videos around a lot quicker. And I think the way that I do that is to make a lot more informal videos, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, as I mentioned in the pre-call, I think I might have been in the show, I'm not sure, that this year, 2025 for Changelog proper is video first. We're taking our podcast full-length video. That's Changelog News, our 2 flavors of our, long-form show, both on YouTube full length. Our news show is 9 minutes or less, and it's already hitting close to 2,000 views. Like 2,000 views is pretty good. We just started this year. It's approaching 2,000 views for that news show consistently. Our shorts and clips, those things are always like in the hundreds on the, maybe sub 1,000s. There's some that are breakout hits in the 50, 60,000s. We've got one video out there that we're going to actually recycle because it's just that good about AI and IP law and stuff like that and music. It's got all the right touches and feels, That one has done more than 1 million views.
Yeah.
You got this really great piece of content. Let's just say, what's in my hardware rack for 2025. Let's say that's what you've done, right? Let's just hypothetically, maybe you've done a video like that. You put a lot of work into that video. Maybe it's 20-ish minutes. You got good chapters in there. You got all the right things. You don't just leave it there though, right? You can turn your camera, your iPhone camera, let's say vertical, and do a short. That is a side promotion of that content. A little informal. I feel like we need like this hub and spoke mentality. You got this hub, which is this larger, longer form, kind of thought out content that's chaptered and, linked up in the description. Then you got these sidecars. You got to go on LinkedIn. You got to go into the shorts. You got to pull some clips from it. Maybe you got to find some way to promote the hub, do some spokes to promote the hub essentially. Is that some things you're doing?
It is absolutely. And I agree. Shorts, are always for me super informal, right? Sometimes I might write from a script just because, I used to only have 60 seconds. Now you get 3 minutes. YouTube finally, folded into what Reels and TikTok's been doing. So you get 3 minutes now.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome. Because before I was like trimming off seconds, half seconds between words just to get it into 59.9 seconds, just in case, because then they wouldn't consider it a short. But yeah, that's exactly what I do. I have my long form polished content, on YouTube proper. And then I take it even one step further. I live stream on Twitch every Saturday, right? Totally informal, totally Q&A, AMA style. I never know what's coming. I promote that other places. And then, absolutely. I upload my, videos to different, LinkedIn, X, Facebook, you name it. Upload those there as well. And then, Instagram Reels too. And, and then there's content all the time that, I made from that week of shooting the video. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Because it's a lot of sharing stuff, right? And hoping that stuff sticks or gets shared again. And it's kind of weird, I don't know. Yeah, for me, sometimes it gets kind of weird because it just feels like sometimes and I don't want people to ever think like I'm showing off, you know what I mean? And that's kind of that's not me at all. Like I never want to show off stuff. But if you see my YouTube stuff, you're like, that dude's a show off. What the heck is he talking about? Why is he showing me all this stuff? I mean, maybe. And some people have thought that who didn't know who I was and didn't know that I do all of this, but maybe just saw my video, the vertical one, for the first time. Mm-hmm. And so it's just a weird space for me to be in. Cause it's like self-promotion on steroids all the time. And, in my private life, that's not how I am.
Yeah, I do feel that angst as well, honestly. And there's 2 pieces of, I wouldn't call it advice, maybe just conversation. One is give them what they came for. That's one of our pillars. Let's just say, core belief, so to speak, around here, right? Give them what they came for. It's got a lot of things. Like, don't make the intro so long that it takes too long to get to the content. Time to content is essential. Whatever is valuable, the hook, etc. give them what they came for. I think people come to you and they want that, start of the year. They want that maybe mid-year and kind of content from you, like, which is show off content. Show me what you've got, Tim. Show me the choices you're making, which is like that show off feeling, but really you're just giving them what they came for, right? You got an audience who cares about your opinion and you kind of have to show off. And so I kind of feel that for you. And, when you do that, if your default gear in life as a human being and your persona and your personality is not a show off personality, then that's going to be a bit foreign to you, right? You're going to feel a little icky. You're going to feel a little too self-promotional and you're going to get some haters, right? And my second piece of advice is let them. Now, that's not my thing. That's Mel Robbins. Do you know Mel Robbins?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh, she's awesome. She wrote this book. This is non-sponsored. I can't wait to read it. I've heard her talk about it. I've been paying attention for a long time, but I don't know how to describe Mel Robbins aside from I think she might be a psychologist. She might be motivational guru. I'm not really sure, but she has been through the ringer, let's just say, in life, and she's bounced back, and she's got lots of life advice because of the way she's changed. And she has this new book out called Let Them. It's called the Let Them Theory, as a matter of fact, is what this book is called. I haven't read it yet, but I identify with the premise, which is you got some haters, you got some people who want to say something about you that, oh, Tim, yeah, you're just showing off. Let them. Somebody doesn't like you, let them. Let them not like me. I don't care, because we care so much as human beings more than anything about what other people think about us. And the reality is, in almost every case, they're not thinking about us at all. They're thinking about themselves, right? And they want to hate on you. You want to change your ways or not show up for your audience or show up in the ways that you want to just be the person you are on YouTube or the different places you're at and be the human being you are. Someone wants to hate on that, man, let them. Yeah. Let them. Let them hate on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's good, man. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's I have that internal struggle, and even if people didn't say anything too, I personally, I'm just like, would I walk outside and be like, hey guys, come look at all this stuff I have, running in my basement. That's kind of how I feel like sometimes on social media, and it's like, but no, it's awesome. No complaints whatsoever, because man, most days of the week I get to wake up and do whatever the heck I want, and it's awesome.
What a joy, right? What an absolute blessing. And yes, it's almost like if someone says, Tim, how's your day? Well, am I healthy? Is my wife healthy? Y'all don't have kids, but I have kids. Are my kids healthy? Is my dog even, is my dog healthy? Are my people healthy? Do I have the opportunity to do what I want to do this day? Man, it's a great day. That's a great day, right?
I agree. Yeah, I've been blessed for a long time with people being healthy in my family.
Yeah.
And at the same time, having so many opportunities that I've had.
Well, at the risk of getting too deep in the details here, man, let's truly talk about Homelab. I feel like for me, there's a couple things that I've been resonating with this, I would say the tail end of tail of last year, and the beginning of this year. One, I'm like desperate to create a creator PC, but then I think I got to put Windows on this thing, and I'm just like, forget it. I want to build it, and I want to, to tinker with all the parts, the GPU, the CPU, the motherboard, all the parts, right? I want to have fun building it. I want it to look cool. I want it to be a showpiece, but I also want it to be performance. But then I'm like, man, Windows? So I'm a Mac guy, true and true. So I'm like, I can go buy a Mac Mini that's basically like, sure, it's overpriced on some of the hardware, but I don't have to worry about drivers and BIOS and configuration, which I don't mind doing in the Linux world, but forget it on a Windows PC. That's resignation one, is I really want to build a creator's PC. And then my second thing is we've talked around the software of artificial intelligence on our show for years now. I mean, we have a show called Practical AI that's part of the network. It's been doing it before it was artificial intelligence. It was data science then, machine learning then. It was not artificial intelligence. Now it is. That's how long we've been steeped in this world of AI. Pre-GPT, anything, really. But I really want to run AI in my home, like a lot of people. And I think thanks to Ollama, Open Web UI, and a lot of these advancements around open source models, or at least openly available models, whether they're truly open source or not, I feel like has now crossed that chasm that I'm compelled to build an AI home lab. And right now I have one. It's so embarrassing. It is an Intel NUC. It runs all on the CPU because there is no GPU, and Ollama will not recognize the iGPU at least on the thing. So it's just straight up CPU. I mean, I can run some, 1.5, maybe 5 billion parameter models. Okay. But anything beyond that is just like, forget it. Right. So those are my two resonations, is like Creator PC and some form of AI Homelab. I feel like we're going to self-host AI in perpetuity at some point. Someone's going to crack the nut on this machine. So those are my two subjects. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's go with the AI one, because that's, yeah. Let's go with that. I mean, so I've been doing it for a little while, and it doesn't take as much as you think it does. I mean, you've already been doing it, and you've been doing it, with this small 1.5 billion parameters, and it's running okay, and for the most part, you can run it in your home. I mean, you talked about Ollama, which is fantastic, which kind of opens the gates for all of these other LLMs. And gives you an easy way to swap them out. And then Open Web UI really takes that to the next level, where it's like, okay, now I have GPTs and helpers and basically a UI to do all this stuff with Ollama. And so you could do it very easily. If you have an old gaming card, if you had an old gaming PC, that's, I don't know, 2030-ish, series RTX, perfect. It's probably only going to have about 8 gigs of RAM. But that's more than enough for some of the smaller LLMs. And I think that's the most important thing, I think, in GPUs is your VRAM. Because if it's small, it can't fit the whole model inside. And so it's going to be paging that. And so you want to look for cards that have, enough VRAM to fit models in them. And so, there are expensive options like even 3090, 4090, 5090. But there are budget options. I think the 3070. So in that Linux Workstation build video I did, and that was focusing on AI, or really LLMs, I wanted to build a workstation to play with them. I think 3070 is the budget pick right now. One, because it has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and two, because the price. And so when I say budget, we're talking sub $300. That's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's not the $5,000-$8,000 that you're going to pay for cards where the compute end, doesn't really matter. And so with 3070s, if you can find one, especially used or something, you can load, big LLMs on there. And not only one, you could run multiple. So I've been running LLMs at home for a little while now. I've been running, Open Web UI to kind of have my own, local chat GPT, if you will. And I've also done some stuff, even as simple, maybe not so simple, but voice transcription, with Home Assistant. And now Home Assistant has, an AI voice assistant. But prior to that, I hooked up Ollama to Home Assistant to make Home Assistant even smarter. And, and the most basic example is I could ask Home Assistant, how many lights are on in the house? Simple question. Home Assistant, prior to me hooking up the LLM, would say, I don't know what room that is. It has no idea what I'm even saying.
Yeah.
So then I hooked it into Ollama, use any model you want, really, honestly, and then asked that same question. And it said, you have 17 lights on in your house. And that's it just blows my mind on how, hopefully, most things we run will let you plug in your own, model or engine, API endpoint, if you will, because that's what it is. And that's yet another thing I want to get into a little bit more is, I can do this stuff in the GUI with Open Web UI and, Midjourney and generate graphics. But for me, the next piece, besides trying to train, is having an LLM API. So really using the REST API that's on Ollama, right? So I could feed it text and do sentiment analysis or ask it to summarize stuff, through an API endpoint, which then I can build any tools I want in the code I want to write, and then have that backed with an LLM of my choosing. And so that's where I think it's super powerful, and that's why the whole DeepSeek thing is kind of blowing up too. But being able to do some of this. And I don't even want to say at home. I just want to say, like, being able to self-host your own LLM, whether that's in the cloud, in your home, at work, but having control over that LLM and not going out to, OpenAI and using their API, but using your own API on your own model that's trained, or maybe a public open source one, is, I think, going to be a huge game changer for a lot of people, for a lot of companies. A lot of companies first, I will say. But it will impact all of our lives as it already is.
Yeah. I think on-prem AI is the necessary next step. And I would potentially even pay for a license. Like if OpenAI is the winner, or if DeepSeek is the winner, or if whoever is the trending, like we choose Intel, we choose AMD, we choose a brand. So whatever brand we as a society or techies or geeks want to choose, like if it's not going to be open source, like literally where I can download it myself, I would love it where I can at least license it, like you would software, and say, okay, well, if O3 truly is the best, or O3 Mini is truly the best, and you can give me an on-prem version, and I have a licensing scheme or something, and I know that you're not hoarding my data or sniffing my stuff or training other things on top. Like if you can give me some agency, then I'm for that too. My preference really is, but it's hard to have this as a hard preference, because I know how much money goes into training these models. Like there was speculation that DeepSeek was only, a few million, which everyone was like, there's no way. How did they do this at such a cheap cost? Well, that was actually just the GPU costs. That was not the true actual cost of training it, which was really speculated to be truly in the billions, similar to OpenAI. So that's the one major trend this year. And thanks to Jared, my business partner and co-host on the show, because he shared that in Changelog News on Monday, which was, really, I love that show. I love paying attention to our own content. I'm up on the latest with dev news when I listen to Changelog News on Mondays, every single Monday, by the way. But I feel like I want to self-host. I'm seeing the future of where this is going. I feel like I want to self-host AI, and I want to go as far as I want to have quad GPUs. Okay, Tim, I want to build an open rack with good ventilation. I want to I want to deck it out. I'm seeing the future where this is going, and that build is like $4,000, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 for that kind of build. But so far, all you can do is do some of the things that you're doing now, which is like home assistant automation and stuff like that. What do you think about this world where we're going to eventually have an appliance, maybe even where we're self-hosted? I feel like someone's going to be like, let me simplify this for most of these home users. Let me one single button this thing, because we're not all Techno Tims and Adams out there. Like they're not going to build these machines. They may pay the price for it, but I kind of feel like the next major trend, even for non-geeks like us, like people who are just like everyday folks, they're going to eventually get to the point where they're saying, you know what, I want to have some agency over my AI, and I want to have an appliance in my house that I know I can trust. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I see this slipping in a little bit. So it's starting to creep in. So a lot of, I guess, NAS, I shouldn't say a lot, but some NAS vendors are now, positioning their NAS as, oh, it can also do AI, because they can put a video card in there, run an LLM, and there you go. Although, that's still, developer mode for most people. But if you install OpenWeb UI, Ollama, and it comes in a nice package in a Synology or whatever NAS you want, it has a video card in there, and it's like, okay, cool. That works. That's a full product, right? And so I think that, people wanting storage at home, and also, those companies seeing that, hey, AI at home is cool too. I think it's going to start going in that way. But I will say that, well, also NVIDIA had that, whatever it was, I forget what it is, H100 or whatever it is basically has like crazy.
That tiny thing?
Yeah, basically like crazy, compute for a reasonable price, I will say. It will like destroy anything. H100, I can't remember.
I think it was a Jetson Nano. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
this is something different.
Oh yeah, they announced this, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. It was right before, they had a press conference right before, I think, CES.
Okay, you keep talking. I'll do some Googling.
So there's that. But again, this is like a developer tool, right? And so it's going to take developers to do this. But that thing is small and compact. And so before you go spending, $4,000 or $5,000 on GPUs, I'd say, look at that first. Because this is like compute on steroids
for anybody to do it themselves. And it's way beyond like anything you could possibly build for the money. But I still think there's going to be, well, two things. I still think it's going to take a killer app. It's going to take a company to put it together in a package and create full product, right? It's not going to be, hey, use this software along with this video card and put it in this hardware, and then you're going to have AI. No, I think it's really going to take a company that's going to do full product. And, that could be anyone. It could be companies we know already, or it could be companies that are, just starting out. But I will say, though, that, I think where this becomes, super useful as soon as we get, I think we have it now, action support. Action support is really going to like change our lives even more than just LLMs already have. So if I'm able to tell, a helper or a GPT to go do something for me, that's where this is going to be huge. And I think ChatGPT just announced something about
operators.
Yeah. So they're already getting action support. And so I would love to be able to, like I do in Home Assistant, say, hey, turn on these 4 lights or turn off these 4 lights. I would love to be able to say things that, are kind of tedious to do, but I want them done. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's Google and Gemini, but, hey, I don't know, summarize my emails. Tell me the most important ones right now. You know what I mean? Or do I have any emails that, are super important or critical that I should look at? I mean, this is all business use case. But if you think, like, imagine if you had that helper on your desktop, and this might be going too far for some people, right? But imagine if you had software running on your desktop that was your helper. It was your AI helper.
Jarvis.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, like, it could do things. Like, it could launch VS Code. It could launch whatever. It could go and patch your server. Like, this is getting probably too techy. But there are so many implications of, like, having a helper and action support be able to do things for you that I think it's going to drastically change stuff. Like, even right now with Home Assistant, well, Jarvis can, I think. But when I hooked up the LLM to Home Assistant, it couldn't do any action through the LLM because I don't know if they were waiting on action support. They were like, yeah, this only works with Google Home and something else. I'm like, wait, like, you can't turn off my lights on the thing because I told you to, but I have to go through Google Home to tell Google Home to do it. Kind of silly. I'm sure they're working it all out, but I don't know. I'm just thinking of just tiny actions here, commands. I'm sure the list goes on and on and on of things that people can think of or do. That I think, I don't know. For me personally, I'm excited about that. Having a helper, to say, like, yeah, go do these couple of things really quick and, like, let me know when you're done, because, I mean, you probably can relate, I'm a person of one, you're a person of one, you have a show and a company to run, and, I have a channel to run along with work on the side, and I can use all the help I can get. And so if I can, rattle off a few commands to, an AI that I trust to do those things for me and do them right, a lot of stipulations there, that would be great. That would be great for me, and so I'm really looking forward to some of this because, yeah, as like, I could use more help. And so far, like, having an LLM like ChatGPT, for me personally, or even a local Ollama, has been, like, super helpful for the person of one, a creator, just to have some ideas, just to have, like, an assistant, that understands everything you say to it, that has maybe or maybe not the same perspective that you do, to be able to ask it questions and get feedback on exactly what you're doing has just been, like, game changing for me personally. Yeah, I don't even Google anymore half the time. Because I don't know if I should go this far, but I'm just kind of rambling about AI, but I rarely Google anymore for things because I don't want to see advertisements. I don't want to see Google's Gemini slowly type in things. I don't even want to click on the link that they suggest, even if it's right, because then I'll have to sift through that website to find what I want. And so I've gotten a lot more efficient by using, GPTs, because I can get, for the most part, a really good answer really quick, and I don't have to shift focus, right? I shift focus once to say ChatGPT. I'm back to doing what I was doing. If I go to Google, so I went to Google, now I'm getting ads. Now I'm clicking on this thing. That wasn't the right link. Oh, it took me to Reddit. What are all these people saying? Let me fish through these comments. No. You know what I mean? And so
I'm so with you.
There's so many chances for it to steal my focus. And that's marketing in general. That's what they want. That is exactly what they want. And so I'm glad that, that ChatGPT is here to kind of disrupt that. Because I don't want to be served up advertisements. I don't want to, I just want to focus on what I want to focus on. And if I need some help from an expert, that's what they're there for. That's what I feel like.
I think it is the next frontier. That's why I bring it up here in this, Homelab friends conversation, is because I feel like once you have, I know the GPUs are even hard to find, right? Like they're hard to find. They're expensive. I feel like it's a racketeer system. Like there's something happening there where, like, I get it. It's everybody needs something GPU to do the next big thing they want to do, whether it's personally, corporately, in the artificial intelligence world. They want to run an LLM. I get it. They're expensive. They're hard to find. You can find like a 3090 or a 37, like you mentioned before, on eBay pretty easily. 3090s are in the $900 to $1,500 range for a decent used one. And if you know how to eBay, then you won't get scanned, or you won't buy the wrong one or buy somebody's junk, basically. I'm thankful that eBay's gotten better at, weeding out the poor sellers. And you still will have someone who doesn't know how to eBay well buy from a poor seller. They don't understand how to use the ranking system or look at feedback to make sure they're a proper seller. And even that is still hard. You can still kind of not get scanned, but like you just buy something that's less than what they say it is. Thankfully, the eBay guarantee, this is not an ad for them, but I use eBay a lot for aftermarket products. I usually win auctions I involve myself in. I can tell you how I do that if you want to know. But you've got to learn how to look at a seller and evaluate it well. The eBay guarantee does say, like, if they say it's new or it's an open box, or they say if they misidentify what it is, or let's say it's a version, they say it's a version 2, but it's actually a version 1. Well, the eBay guarantee protects you as a buyer from that. And eBay's gotten so much better at enforcing this that for me, it's a fairly trustworthy place to buy things, albeit you can still buy the wrong thing from the wrong person, and maybe you have some challenges with getting your money back or getting a replacement. But my adventures in eBay lately have been mostly positive. And that's what I'll say from there. That's my caveat to say, like, GPUs are hard to access. But I feel like the next frontier really is like, okay, I can self-host. Even the geeks like us, for now, we can begin to say, flesh out this world. Running AI locally on a decent box or a really beefy box, to me, seems like the next frontier. Ollama seems to be the centerpiece of enabling most, if not all of this, because it's the vehicle. It's the index online, ollama.com. You can go there and find the latest models. You've got downloads, you've got the parameters, you've got, clipboards where you can like copy and paste to your terminal or inside of Open Web UI. They're making it really easy to find models you can play with locally. And the API that Open Web API offers, or even Ollama offers, like that whole API scenario, being able to tap into Home Assistant, like your video on that opened my eyes up, because I was like, wow, you can now voice command Home Assistant where once before you could not. And all you need is probably a really simple model that understands how, it could be a very small parameter model. So maybe that Home Assistant box is a very small box. Maybe it's all CPU even, because it's like such low pressure AI. It's just like, how many lights? Turn on kitchen. Give me this smarts where the smarts were not there before because the API is there. Then for me, I'm thinking like, as a person who wants to simplify my time, we quote somebody on working with us at sponsorship level or partner level every single day. And it is a time-consuming task because I haven't found a way to automate it with a level of high touch I want to give everybody who works with us. I can easily just copy paste from something, but I feel like everybody needs a little bit of extra attention and detail. I would love it if I can train an AI or just rag it essentially and tell it, okay, this is our proposals. This is our pricing scheme. This is how we do things. And me just tell it what I need, and I tell it the format I want it back, and it gives that back to me pretty much errorless. Pretty much. I'm still going to review it, and like those that like really good applications I can see myself doing, but ChatGPT is not trying to optimize for that for me. Maybe I can do it. Maybe they're trying to do it, but at the same time, now I got to give them all my data. And sure, I know we've been Googling forever and they've got all of our information anyways. And sure, they know exactly where you're at in the world, according to Changelog News this past Monday. But I feel like this local run, privacy focused scenario with the things we're asking AI these days is sort of the next frontier. And I'm hopeful for you because you're like steeped in this Homelab stuff. So people are probably just pouring into your channel thinking, how do I run this stuff? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. It's an odd topic on YouTube. I'll say that. It's an odd topic.
Odd?
Yeah, odd. Yeah. Because it has the potential to go, I think, either way. Either people are burned out and don't want anything to do with it. Well, there are people who don't want anything to do with it. There are people who are burned out about hearing it. And then there are people who might want to hear about it and want to do it. So, it's always, it's like every video, it's a crapshoot talking about those things. But there are people. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, that video, is performing pretty well. And people have asked, and there are other creators talking about this too, especially the whole, the DeepSeek thing, really got people interested in self-hosting AI because they wanted to figure out and play with this DeepSeek thing. And the easiest way to do that without, sending all your data wherever it would be, online was to host it yourself. So I think that, oddly enough, I think that DeepSeek helped, people realize that they can self-host LLMs probably more so than Ollama's ever done. You know what I mean? Because it did two things. One, it let people know that it's a possibility. And it also let people know that, hey, it's private, and those are two things that I don't think a lot of people knew were possible. And nothing against Ollama. It's fantastic. It's great, but it'd be hard to market them or that product or service, in the way that DeepSeek, I think, marketed it. All the DeepSeek hype really, was marketing for other stuff too, which drove so many people getting interested in this. But yeah, I think that's what people are going to do. I honestly still feel like, there's an opportunity for a company to put it in a bow. And there's going to be that opportunity, I think, for a long time and do whole product. But in the meantime, we could do this ourselves. I just hope that companies continue to allow us to plug in, our own models. And, one of the things that I talked about in that video too was that, I kind of hinted at it, but I use Mac Whisper, for my subtitles and stuff to get them transcribed right because I care about them. And I think a lot of people should do. That's my pitch for, accessibility in general. You should care about them because there are a lot of people who can't hear or have hard of hearing or just don't speak English and they want to be able to read English. So anyways, Mac Whisper is an app. It's freemium. You can get it. You can download it, run it on your Mac. It does great with the small models. But in there, I paid for it. I paid for it myself, so I use it. And no relationship to them whatsoever. But I kind of talked about them in the video where I said, like, hey, it would be great if a lot of companies let you plug in your own endpoint or plug in your own models, And I kind of showed their screenshot of them only allowing ChatGPT. Well, sure enough, like shortly after, now it allows Ollama. So, I mean, I probably had nothing to do with it. It was probably on the roadmap. But that's what I want to see. I want to see, like, instead of application developers thinking like, hey, how can I hook into ChatGPT so everybody can now use ChatGPT? Well, think about Ollama and other things too. Think about, how you can offer that option. And I think that's a huge differentiator too. If someone developing software right now says, yeah, we can plug into Ollama, that's a differentiator. Every software company right now is saying, yeah, we can hook into ChatGPT. Just put in your API key. Here you go.
Yeah.
But I also think that they should be including Ollama for sure.
For sure, because Ollama can be in the cloud too, right? You can spin up an Azure server. I mean, I was even tempted, like, okay, if I want to play with some H100s or just like some sort of really thing I can't afford or have access to, in terms of a GPU. I can go to Azure. I can spin up even a Windows box, which is kind of crazy, right? You can spin up an actual Windows machine in the Azure cloud and play with it as if it's like a local desktop. You can, VNC into it, whatever, remote desktop into it, and you can install things on it, obviously. You can give it access to GPUs. You can do a lot of cool stuff. And you might spend $100 on that front run because you're maybe renting a really expensive GPU, but it's better than thousands you may not have or want to spend on a GPU you can't even get access to, right?
Yeah. But, that's for sure. Yeah.
But I feel like that's kind of cool that you can do that. I feel like Ollama is, and maybe thanks to DeepSeek, we've been talking about Ollama for a while, but I've just never actually been curious enough to play with it. I just, for whatever reason, just haven't, let's just say.
Yeah.
But now I'm in this kick of, like I mentioned, like I got two things resonating with me. I really want to build some sort of AI home lab, and thus far I'm just using what I have because I think that's where you should begin, right? If you want to know where to begin, what do you have? Play with that. Even if it can't run anything super powerful, begin where you are, basically. But now I'm curious enough to be like, well, would it make sense for me to take my hard-earned dollars and invest in hardware? One, for just curiosity. Two, maybe we can get a sponsor to pay for it. Three, maybe we can make some content from it. But four, like just have this AI as a service with models I want to swap out as this becomes more and more popular on my own network. Tie in a home assistant like you've done, maybe even side train a model where I can take this sort of like really small model and say, this is the way we propose things. And these are all of our contracts over the last 2 years, and let it have that source of truth. And now it's just super smart with the way we do business. I don't want to give that kind of, sure, I could probably do that with ChatGPT, but man, wow, what an exposure point, right?
Yeah.
Here's all of our contracts over the last 2 or 3 years. Could you imagine that? Like, no, I would feel much more comfortable doing it. And I think that's the angst is like everyone has to give up some version of privacy to play with artificial intelligence, or you have some version of plagiarism. Well, I'm sorry to tell everybody, like AI is here to stay. Like there is no putting that genie back in the bottle. And you can be against it if you want to be, and you can ignore it if you want to, but you will be behind. You will, because young folks, and I don't want to say just young folks, but like people that are born into the world today with the way technology is, they don't know any different. You and I, Tim, we grew up probably in the dial-up days. You probably remember how AOL sounds, right?
Oh, yeah. Goodbye. Yeah, right? I got that down.
We've got that. Yeah. They have no idea what that is, right?
No, I agree. I totally agree. And, I feel like there's this stigma for the people who are against AI. I feel like there's a stigma of those things you talked about. Plagiarism, it's not your own thoughts. You're not being unique. You're not using your brain. All of these things I hear people say every now and then. Your brain's going to turn to mush. Things we've heard about TV for,
truth.
Kids.
Or metal or hard rock,
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But what I see is, I've always, and I think I said this last time, but I always think of like, when I use a GPT or a helper, ChatGPT, whatever, Open Web UI, when I use an LLM to ask it questions, I'm usually thinking of it like a rough draft. Anything that it spits out to me is a rough draft. It might be ideas. It might give me new ideas. It might give me new perspectives, but I'm never going to copy and paste that thing and put it in my email, directly. I might copy and paste it and change some words, but I'm saying like, that is always going to be a rough draft to me. And so I feel like if people can understand that, and it's not just, something that's like feeding me ideas or doing work for me, I think that's, that's the perspective I have. I kind of relate it to like 3D printing, and like, at least not at home, but say you're, a machine shop, right? And you want to be able to produce something really quick, and you have some ideas, and you want to test something out, you 3D print it. You look at it, you test it out, you think, will this work? You make some adjustments. And then if you like it, that goes to production and you produce the real thing. Well, like for me, at least, ChatGPT is kind of like that for me. Help me out, give me some ideas. Maybe there's things I'm not even thinking about, but that's my rough draft. I'm going to take that and use it probably in my final product, but it's not the final product. And that's the way I look at it. And you could get so much done so quick just by having the right answers almost all the time. I tell my wife because, she's just very early on. She'll ask me questions about it. She's only used it a handful of times. But I say to her, imagine if you had a friend on Slack that knew everything you were saying to it, that understood, almost everything you could possibly say to it, that could help you out with anything you ask it, and is usually right and will give you a pretty concise answer every time. Imagine if you had that friend in Slack that you could DM on the side. That's how I kind of treat ChatGPT. And or any LLM, because it's just so refreshing to have. I don't know. I work on really weird stuff. I work on Homelab stuff. I work on things where the same question has probably been asked twice, ever. Will this GPU fit here because, I only have this amount of clearance in my server rack? I'm not going to find that answer on Reddit. And it's going to take me a long time to go and get the dimensions, go and measure, do all this stuff. Or if I could ask, an LLM that, and it knows, it's like, oh, here are the dimensions. Here's the height on this case. Yeah, that'll fit. It's fantastic. And so it's just, I'm not trying to talk it up, but
you are, you should.
I know it saved me so much.
Don't feel
time.
Bad about it, man.
I know.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
We're simpatico.
All right, man. Cause it saved me so much time from not going to Google and not wasting my time on Reddit and not going somewhere else and getting advertised to. It saved me a lot of time. So even simple things. My wife and I started saying like, give me interesting pizza recipes. Because we were like, hey, look, we make pizza every week. And, we have the same kind of pizzas, but we're like, let's branch out. Give me interesting pizzas, whatever. Obviously, it's going to go to the web. It's going to look, but it's going to find all of them, spits them out. There's one that's barbecue cauliflower. And we're like, yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We made pizza the other day and it was fantastic. And it's kind of like, hey, tell me more, tell me more about this recipe. And then they give you the whole entire recipe. So, and, I'm to the point now where I turn on voice, and I've gotten kind of bad with it a little bit late. Not bad, but I've been relying on it a lot while I'm working on stuff. I can just be like, hey, a perfect example for me. We were talking about the UI of cameras earlier. I cannot find menu items in a camera. If you have a Sony camera, you can relate.
So many pages.
Where's the format? Where is the image format? Like, I have no idea. So, I'll have voice on sometimes and I'll just be like, hey, can you tell me how to get to, this setting in the camera? Here's the camera I have. Sure. Go here, here, and here. Awesome. And then I'm like, if I change this setting, is this going to affect the frame rate? No, it's not. You know what I mean? And so I will have a pretty in-depth conversation about one thing I'm working on, with an LLM. And it's so great. It's so great for the things you don't understand or I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan. And I talk to it, and I talk to it because it's faster than typing.
Have you heard it be called a word calculator yet?
Word calculator?
Mm-hmm.
No, not yet.
That's what I call it. That's what we call it around here.
Yeah.
It's become the way I think about it. It's a word calculator.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's guessing the percentage of what. Yeah, it's trying to determine what to say based on percentage of what it knows.
Well, the same way you use a calculator, you're trying to figure something out, right? But it calculates with it's a word. It uses words. It uses understanding, reasoning, even in the latest models. I think of it like that. It's like, okay, I'll just paste in a bunch of stuff. Like, tell me all the numbers in here and add them up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if I copied 15 lines from my bank statement, for example, online, and I'm like, I want to know what these add up to, but the copy and paste on my Bank of America web UI is just terrible.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to pull that into Sublime Text and like pull out all the, I'm not going to waste my time with that. I'll throw it into a GPT. There's no information there that's really, shareable. I would much rather do it locally.
Yeah.
Given all the things that we just talked about. But like, hey, you see all these numbers here after the $? Those are all figures I want you to add up and dedupe and tell me the right answer. It's going to do it.
Yeah.
In a second, you know, and that's what I mean by word calculator. We could probably gush about AI for forever. Let's not do that. Let's talk about two more things, especially if you have time. Do you have more time?
Yeah, dude, I have all day, man. I'm yours. Like,
Sweet. Let's go deep then. Okay, so let's close with, I think I would like to see some AI builds from you. I'd like to see low tier, mid tier, high tier AI Homelab builds that might give people a gateway into this world, right?
Yeah.
That would be cool. Might be hard. I think that's really up your alley. That's where I'll leave that at. Let's talk about the creator PC. And so you mentioned the dev workstation, which I watched your video on that. So you built a Linux workstation, the ultimate Linux workstation, 78,000 views. I think people are like resonating with what you're saying here. I mentioned I'm resonating with building a creator PC. I kind of just want to build another machine.
Yeah.
And I don't have a need for another machine, but I got this itch. I want to build another PC from scratch. I love it. It's just so much fun, honestly. But I don't want to put Windows on it. And I don't think I don't think the year of Linux desktop is here for video editors, audio editors. It may be for developers. It's here and it has been here forever. So my PC building, my creator PC building has been, stifled until I can figure out how to put Mac on it, which Mac OS on it. Not going to happen.
No.
Apple, if you're listening, somebody at Apple, if you're listening, I would love it if you can just make it so that if you love open source, I think you might, make it so that Mac OS can live on, a PC that is built for Linux. Treat it like Linux. I want to build your hardware too, but gosh, I want to build my own hardware sometimes, and I don't want to give up Mac OS.
No, you gotta pay for the dongle, which is the whole machine.
That's right. Or the RAM. Like, did you see that speculation about the Mac Mini basically being free? The lowest tier basically being free? Because if you, I think, added a couple things to it, it's like double the price.
Yeah. You can change the storage. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So creator PC, what'd you do here? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So creator PC. So to me, I think, okay, gonna do video editing, video capturing, might do Photoshop edit, might do raster graphics or whatever, vector. But I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing I think of for gaming PC, and it's the same thing I think of for, an AI machine. It's all going to boil down to your video card. So, I mean, your first choice, most people's first choice is going to be CPU, right? And so you have two choices. I think most people right now are going to pick AMD. I picked Intel, and that was my choice in that video because I wanted a couple of things. One, I wanted QuickSync because QuickSync is awesome for transcoding. And when I say transcoding, I don't mean just for Plex or anything like that, but you're able to take advantage of that on Windows while you're editing machines, or decoding, encoding. So the CPU can go either way. You can't go wrong right now. But a lot of people are leaning towards AMD because Intel's kind of been, all over the place. But I did choose Intel. I think that
the Core Ultra,
the Core Ultra, I think, is great for everything but gaming. And let me say this, it's still great for gaming, but if you're going to build a gaming PC, you might as well go with AMD right now. But it's great for multitasking. Low heat, low power, like Intel kind of turned it around with the CPU, even though it's doing poorly. It uses less power, less heat, whatever. But you're going to choose your CPU. RAM, it's going to be, DDR5. Don't choose 4. Like a lot of people want to choose 4 because it's cheaper. Don't. It's if you're building anything new today, 5. So that means you got to find a motherboard that has the right socket and DDR5, which pretty easy to find those. I'm a Asus fan. I'm a big fan of Asus motherboards. So I usually choose from Asus. I'm like, what do they have that I can buy? It's not like, let me look at all motherboards. It's similar to, when I'm brand loyal to stuff, that's what I do. Like Samsung flash drives. That's all I'll ever buy. So I'm like, what does Samsung have right now? Same with TVs. I'm brand loyal to Samsung. What TVs does Samsung have? It's not just like what's on sale, So anyways, I'm the same way with motherboards. It's always going to be for me Asus. It doesn't mean I'll never buy something else, but that's what I prefer. I typically on that board, I will look for a chipset, possibly that's Intel, that has an Intel NIC on it. Mainly because those play with Linux a lot better than Realtek chipsets. So, I mean, if you are thinking about it, definitely look for one with an Intel NIC built into the board. That's the way I look at it because it does better with Linux. And then you're going to want 2.5 gig networking on there. Honestly, if you're building a creator machine, you're going to want 10 gig. 2.5 is borderline pretty good. I mean, you could probably edit, 4K with maybe a couple of stutters. But you want to look for 10 gig. And if you can't get it on board, you could do aftermarket parts and add it there. So that leaves that's a lot of requirements up front. I know that ASUS has their, I don't know, media art, creator art piece, pro art. I knew art was in the word, but they have those that are dedicated. They say to creators, but really what it means is, hey, a lot of space for fast storage, fast network cards, and we support the latest RAM and CPUs.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, I would say, like, I know you're against Windows. I run everything. Like,
I'm not against it. I'm just sad that that's the only option. I'm just like, I played with it before I did my AI Homelab on my same NUC, because it's the only extra machine I have to like play with something like on bare metal. So I installed Windows 11, and I thankfully they let you install it and play with it for free. They don't make you have to have a license. Now you can't change the desktop and there's limitations to what you can do, and I think they nag you a little bit. But then I was like, I mean, there's a lot of extra software on there. I mean, it's not the worst ever.
Yeah.
I just think, like, gosh, if I'm going to build a creator PC, I've already got so many efficiencies and workflows in the Mac OS world, software I've bought, things that I just can't live without, like Raycast I know is something I use on Mac. I think they have a plan for a Windows client, but they're not there yet to my knowledge. Maybe they are. I don't know for sure. But I'm thinking, like, what do I have to give up to move to this different world? Okay, well, Adobe Creative Suite, at least my license there doesn't limit me to platform. I can use Windows or Mac. So that's cool. But then, like, man, everything else is just like these weird hoops. And then Windows seems to be, I think, user hostile, like absolutely user hostile. Like to go and have fun and build and spend the money on a really awesome creator PC and have to install Windows to be a creator on that same machine and have a user hostile operating system. Not saying Mac OS is that much better, but it is. It's that much better hostility wise. It's at least not doing all sorts of crazy stuff like Windows does and like AIing everything. Like, I think Apple Intelligence might be the next frontier for them, and hopefully they don't push that button too hard. They're sort of backpedaling a little bit.
It's already here. It's on my Mac Studio.
I mean, you could tell me what the experience is like. I don't have that, but I'm hoping that they don't, Apple Intelligence me too much. I feel like Windows is just user hostile, really.
Yeah. I mean, they have a long history of like introducing features that people don't want. They say they don't want, and then they prove they don't want, because then they get taken away. And then at the same time, taking away features that people still want because they think that's what's best for the user, and it ends up not being what's best for the user. And so they backpedal. Start menu, classic example. So yeah, it's, I don't know. Personally, I use Mac, Windows, Linux. Like, I have Windows here too. I actually enjoy Windows. After it's installed, you strip out the stuff, you make it exactly the way you want, and then you get WSL running on it. So Windows Subsystem for Linux. I feel like at that point, it's almost everything that I need outside of iMessenger or Messenger, right? Outside of there, like being able to text people while I'm on my machine, it does everything. Like the WSL side lets me run Linux in a terminal that lets me to do, basically I'm in a terminal for Linux and I can do everything I want to do. Don't even have to think about PowerShell or anything like that. I can be a developer and run developer tools. But then if I want to launch, Adobe, whatever, Creative Suite, boom, I'm there. I'm editing. It's working great. Windows drivers with NVIDIA or even QuickSync or whatever works fantastic, right? Because they're getting drivers and iterations so much faster because just the volume of people. Then if I want to launch a game, it's right there, right? Launch a game, boom, I'm in a game. The other thing is like compatibility with hardware. Like you cannot match Windows compatibility with hardware. Like it works with anything you can plug into it. And most things are built to work with Windows. And again, like this is brought to you by a Mac right now. And, I've had to jump through a lot of hoops because of Apple, because dongles, because no PCI Express, because whatever the reason. And so, the things that you think are getting taken away from you, imagine what people lose when they go to a Mac. So I would flip that around and say, you lose so much freedom as a tinker, as a builder, as a custom rig builder, as a gamer, as whatever, going to Mac. You lose so much.
Really?
You lose a lot. Oh yeah. I mean, I can't even plug in a PCI Express card, right? I mean, Mac doesn't allow that. They don't allow any video card. You got to use theirs. And so what I've had to do is get this USB-C dongle that powers this thing that allows me to plug in, PCI Express cards so I can capture video and you can see me right now. That's what I do. I mean, that's the lengths people have to go to get things to work that just work in Windows. You get them on the board, you get PCI Express, you plug the card in, boom, it works. Drivers are already there. So I've gone both ways. Like I use both and I flip flop on both all the time. So it was honestly harder for me to go to Mac than to go to Windows. Obviously, probably because I ran it for 20 years. But making that switch, I realized, Mac is great, stable, fantastic. I never have to worry about it waking up or it staying on. Like it just works. Like apps are so stable all the time, with the exception of editing every now and then. And I don't know. I have a beef with Apple's biggest release, their software release with everything. I feel like every single thing I use from Apple right now is a bug, and we just need to get past this point. But going to Mac, I kind of sometimes miss Windows, if that's a thing. For me, it is. Sometimes I do miss Windows to be able to just, I don't know, do whatever I want because Windows works with everything.
So free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're encouraging me to bite the bullet, so they might say, just because, I'm running to give some context to why I'm in this struggle is, one, I like to build machines, and two, I'm running an M1 Max machine that literally is maxed out. 64 gigs. It's the M1 Max. It's the initial M series MacBook Pro. I've got 4 terabytes of onboard storage just because we wanted to max things out when we purchased these. I think back in 2021. I don't even know, right? And so, I'm obviously been a Mac user for a while, and I feel like I want the freedom to build my own machine. I want the freedom to choose my own video card. I want the freedom to choose AMD versus Intel. I want the freedom to choose DDR5 and not spend $10,000 on Apple RAM. I'm being facetious there, but it's expensive, right? RAM is expensive, storage expensive. And so you can go to Samsung and get, what are the 900 series SS, the NVMe's, what are those?
Yeah, 980s. Yeah.
The 980s, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Samsung fast. 980 M2 NVMe, super fast. You can get those so much cheaper than you would to even try and double your storage on a Mac build. Right?
Yeah,
it's very expensive.
10 of them. You could put 10 of them in a machine if you wanted to, if you have
Precisely.
enough lanes.
So you pay this Apple tax, and the tax is, to some degree, simplicity in the fact that it just works, right? It's a pretty stable system. I really haven't had a lot of issues, but you got to pay that dollar tax. And then obviously my family is an iMessage family.
Yeah.
And so I've got to have that somewhere. I can't just have it on my phone. I got to have it on my desktop too. Who wants to text only on their phone? Forget that. That's a terrible world.
I lived that world for a while. And that's why I was saying, if I ever left Mac and went 100% back to Windows, that's the only thing I'd miss, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I'd miss. I mean, notes too, now that I'm in the ecosystem, I'm like, yeah, notes are super easy. They're right here. I'll type a note in here.
Photos, man. I reference photos on my desktop frequently.
Yeah.
The syncing between Photos app on my phone to the desktop is just,
Yeah.
And then there's the other tax there, right? You get your iCloud tax, right? Yeah. And, I don't know about you. I like to back up my photos, but then I also like the Apple Cloud for those photos too, because I share a lot of photos with my wife. We got kids and we just have history. We love to look back at photos that are 5, 10 years old, frequently, because as a dad, one of the things I do with my kids is we'll do story time at night, but we'll also look through some photos of things we've done like a year ago or 2 years ago, or have a memory with somebody. And for kids, that's grounding, right? That's their identity. Who are we? Why do you love me, Dad? It's a reminder. I know they know I love them, but it's a reminder of the fun things we did. Just because we didn't get to do something fun this week doesn't mean we haven't done it before. And it's just this remembrance of where they've been, loved ones that are not here anymore, or someone we don't get to see too frequently, just reminding them how much they matter to them. And that's how we use photos, not just obviously for, B-roll like you're doing. We're it's more than that. We live in it. It's a life thing for us. So maybe I just need to be a Windows and Mac family. Maybe it's like, why one or the other? Why not both?
That's what I say. Like, why not both? Exactly that. Because I know a lot of people who use a Mac all day. I mean, me personally, I used to be Windows at home, Mac at work. No, sorry, other way around. Mac at home, Windows at work. That's how it was for a long time as a developer. Every enterprise had Windows. Don't bring those Macs in here. And then it flip-flopped. Then it got to be, well, now I'm a developer. They just hand me a Mac, so I'm using a Mac at work. Well, I'm going to use Windows at home because I game. And so it can be like that. If you think of the computer you're using like a tool, and kind of what it is, it's hard to think of it like a tool because it's so versatile. But if you say, here's my editing machine and here's my everything else machine, then it kind of might make sense. But I mean, what? You're still going to have a MacBook or a laptop, right? And so you'll have your laptop plus, a workstation. It is hard going that way, but I honestly think it's hard going the other way because you give up so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you give up so much to move to Apple.
Humor me. Let's build a creator PC. I know you just shared your video, and I know you're running Linux on it. You're not running Windows on it, but that's okay because the build itself, the hardware itself is probably very similar. So let me tell you what I would like to build, and let's compare it to what choices you've made and why. And this is not an exhaustive of all the components. It's the core things. It's the case, it's the motherboard, it's the CPU, it's the cooler, things like that. You can go into RAM. I think that's pretty, you may have opinions about which brand, maybe it's cheapest, whatever. Obviously, you're a Samsung lover on the NVMe storage section, but the case I would like to use is the ProArt PA602.
Yeah, ProArt. That's what I was saying.
The motherboard, ProArt again, ProArt Z790. CPU so far is the Intel 14900K.
14 gen. You're going with last gen.
So that I didn't even know. Is that last gen? I'm not like you, Tim. I'm not on, that's why you're here, man. Keep me on the edge.
No, it's totally fine. But yeah, 14.
Is Ultra the new hotness then?
It is.
Okay.
It's their latest.
But I wasn't sure what Ultra was. It was new. I was like, is that for, who is that for? Okay. So Ultra's the new
but
hotness.
Not really new because they launched it on laptops a while ago, but now they launched it on desktops and it's super confusing because you'll see laptop reference with Core Ultra, but then desktop processors now are out that are Core Ultra. So I don't know. There's a lot of cross-checking before you buy stuff because you don't want to buy the wrong thing. So that's one thing to look into. But yeah, 14 gen, they're great. Run hot, run power hungry. Then there was all those problems with them, but that's all fixed in microcode now and firmware updates. So
okay. So I'll jury's out then on the CPU. I'll take some advice. Maybe the 1400K is the old hotness, and I need a new hotness. I need a new hotness. Who knows? Cooler, I was advised on the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 420 millimeter, all that good stuff. That's the biggest thing you can put into this. And I think it fits in the ProArt case as well. Thermal take, tough power, 1200 watt, 80 plus platinum. And then the GPU, I mean, aside from the conversation we had earlier about AI Homelab stuff, I think GPUs are just hard to find. And so I'll pay through the nose for this if I can get this one, but a 4090. I can't buy a 5090 because it's not available, and two, it's probably just like $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 because of, scalpers or whatever. So I'm just, the jury is out on the 5090, but I do want the 90 series of the 30 or the 40. And so I was thinking the MSI Gaming GeForce RTX 4090. I could also go with the Asus TUF version of that, the RTX 4090 there, or the 3090. I think the 4090 and 3090 kind of compare pretty well. So if it's availability and price, maybe the 3090 TUF edition from Asus, or this MSI GeForce RTX 4090 if I can find it. But that's gonna be pricey. That's gonna be like $2,000, $2,500. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, if I have to spend this much money to build for fun this machine, I gotta put Windows on it. Okay, fine. You've made me think that maybe there's a world I can live in that has both Mac and Windows in my life. That's the rough of what I'd like to build. I wouldn't mind AMD. I do have an AMD AI Homelab, but your video on your Linux workstation made me think maybe my AI Homelab should be this creator PC workstation. Maybe I can blend the worlds. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it absolutely could, because you could use that GPU for Ollama or for anything else while you're not using it, or even while you're using it, right? Because it's just going to use the CUDA cores if you're using NVIDIA, and so it's going to use CUDA cores and VRAM. But if you're typing a document, you don't need that. You don't need any of that, you know. So yeah, you could do both. You could have it run both, and then you could keep the AI local. And I think there's desktop applications that you could just install it and do it all like local, not even on a server in your home, but on the machine you're using. So yeah, that would totally work. It totally work. 3090, yeah. I have a 3090. I got pretty lucky because right before the pandemic, or right as it started, that launched, and everybody wanted the 3070 and 3080, I think. And I wanted the 3080. But it just so happened like Best Buy had one of those in stock, the 3090. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm going to spend like $1,000 on a GPU. Turned out to be like the best purchase ever because you couldn't find them after that. And I used it all through the pandemic for all of my videos and everything. It was great. It was great. But I still think they're solid. I like the Founders Edition. Like if you're going to buy something, I feel like the Founders Edition directly from NVIDIA. Just the design and everything is fantastic. I understand why people don't choose that, but that's just me, my personal preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This world of GPUs is hard to understand as an outsider coming in.
Yeah.
Founders Edition, OC, Tough Gaming.
Yeah.
I know these are sub-brands of certain brands. Then you got MSI, and you've got, EVGA, I believe, is another prominent brand that you can get. Now, I think that might be availability, maybe pushing that brand because MSI or somebody else might not be available. I don't know. It just, from the outsider coming in, someone who's never been a gamer. I've never been a gamer. I've never built a PC to build to game on. So building even a machine to utilize a dedicated GPU is foreign to me. I've never done it. So even selecting which GPU or having this history, thankfully we've got people like you out there, and my other good friend, I don't know his name, I can't remember his name, Technotis. Great dude. He's always on it with like the latest, and he's strictly creator PC guy. Like he's not gamer PC guy. Now he will talk about how it may influence or not influence if you're a gamer too, but he's primarily giving advice generally on the tip of technology. And he's got lots of videos out there. So he's covered most of everything really, from RAM to storage to whatever. And it's all from a creator PC or a creator lens, not a gamer lens. Not that it's a bad thing, but like a lot of people are trying to build their best possible rig for creating because the Mac has limitations, or they really want to push the boundaries, or they need, more than one GPU for whatever reason. Like for me, if I really had unlimited funds, I would love to build an AMD Ryzen Threadripper Pro machine that has a workstation level motherboard, tons of PCI lanes, and I would love to have multiple, if not 4. I think once you get to 5, it's kind of hard, but like, especially on like power and cooling, but at least 2, maybe 4 GPUs. Like if this AI theory, I know you're laughing.
Oh.
If this AI theory plays out, I feel like, wow, I can build this rig. It might be expensive, but long-term it might play out because I think AI will become the centerpiece of Homelabbers here soon enough. If, models become, as we've talked about before, remain or become more open source or available on Ollama, and Ollama becomes a first-class citizen when it comes to integrations for platforms. I think if it's like I integrate with ChatGPT and Ollama, if that becomes a real thing, well then that kind of machine will pay its dividends over time as AI becomes more and more advanced. And as we allow it to inject itself more and more into this private world we have, into our Homelab world. So, I mean, I probably wouldn't build an AMD Threadripper Pro machine for my own personal creation, like creator level. I think the Intel Core Ultra or the Intel 14900K would be just great in that world. But AMD has some compelling things about it. It seems Threadripper. That's a cool name, right?
Yeah, who doesn't?
Threadripper's cool.
Ever since I heard it the first time, I'm like, heck yeah, I want to rip.
I want that,
threads, man.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to rip threads? Yeah. So yeah, you touched on a good point. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it totally oversight on my part. Something that I always think about when building, a machine is PCI Express lanes. And so, if you're going for a creator machine, yeah, like there is a huge market, I think, for workstation level machines and Threadripper is what we have from AMD. I don't know what Intel did. They had one, now they don't have one, and who knows what's going on. But like workstation level machines, I think should be a focus for, I think, both platforms. Mainly because like you're limited in PCI Express lanes. I think on Intel now you get 24, so they caught up with AMD. But what does that mean in reality? It means you put a video card and you get 2 NVMe drives. That's not enough for most people, especially creators. And it used to be 20. So you'd put a video card in there, that's 16 lanes. Then you'd put an NVMe drive in there, that's 4 lanes, and you're maxed out. As soon as you build a PC, you're maxed out. So that's something to keep in mind too. Any desktop class processor, you go with AMD or Intel, you're going to be limited to 24 lanes. I think they're both 24 now. And so that means, a video card and 2 NVMe drives.
You could bifurcate those though, right? Like you can drop it down to 8 lanes. You're just like less bandwidth. I think it's not speed, it's bandwidth. Isn't that what it is?
Well, bifurcation, yeah, you can do. And it's really just dividing up the lanes. So yeah, you could maybe turn that 16 into 2 8s, right? Or maybe even go down to 4 4s, to get the 16, depending on the cards, depending on the motherboard. Like there's a big if in there. But at the end of the day, you're still getting a total number of 24, right? And so your video card is going to take 16. And, NVMe drive, one of them, your OS probably is going to take 4 of that. So then you're left over with another 4 for maybe your media. And then it means whatever else you want to plug in there, it's going to be shared, or who knows, maybe not work. They'll most likely be shared. But and so I don't know. I feel like gaming like influenced this whole thing to why we don't have PCI Express lanes. I kind of feel like it. I don't know. This is my theory, is that like, manufacturers saw, hey, most people just want to put a video card in and one NVMe drive and call it a day. And so I think, motherboard manufacturers started seeing that, and they're like, well, okay, well, we're going to chop our motherboards down and make them smaller. We're just going to give you 2 slots, And then case manufacturers saw that, and they're like, okay, we're going to make our cases smaller, And then, CPUs, they were trying to see how many lanes, the minimum they could get away with. And they're like, 20 sounds good. I don't know. I feel like they optimized for the wrong thing. They didn't optimize for me. And maybe I'm the outlier. Maybe we're the outliers, right? Like we want PCI Express lanes. We want to plug in add-in cards. And that's
the whole point, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I want a NIC. Maybe my motherboard comes with a decent one. That's okay. But if it doesn't,
you're going to throw.
If they're not pushing 10 gig or more, I want to put a card in. Maybe I want to do an HBA because I want to have. Maybe I'm building an AIaaS. Maybe I also want a GPU in there too, and I want room for it, not just ability to put it in there for the lanes, but like give me some room.
Yeah.
I think you're going to want to do some things like that, and we're not the outliers here. I think that I don't know. Maybe everything that is GPU related, even motherboards lately, until ProArt and things like this, they started to push creators, not game. Like almost everything is, and I know you love RGB. I know you do.
Yeah,
but you're also a gamer too, so you got that in your blood. I'm not I love games, but I've never been a PC gamer. I like to play Nintendo Switch with my kids. We love, Mario Party. It's all the rage in our house. We love that. Mario Kart, of course, too. But gamers really influenced, I think, PC builds because everything's gamer edition.
Yeah,
and it's all gaming influence. It's all pushing what can happen in gaming. But I think you need that though, right? You need some sort of killer application. Or, killer thing to happen. I think it's what happened with Ollama is DeepSeek was the killer app for Ollama was let's make Ollama more useful. Well, now we have a model that's comparative to others. But in the PC world, gamers kind of push that world for a while. Like you don't have anybody who has to have access to, cloud docs and stuff like that needing a GPU. That workstation it's not your everyday person. Maybe you have somebody who's got a spreadsheet-itis and they've got spreadsheets out the wazoo and they need a better CPU for that. But that's that's the limit. You know, they're not pushing GPU stuff. So all of that PCI lane express or PCI express lane innovation and GPU innovation was happening because gamers were pushing the innovation, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to get the fastest machine, to get the best frame rates, to get the lowest latency. Yeah, it pushed a lot of things forward. But I still, you know, I also feel like, man, that kind of like pigeonholed what a machine is possible of, and everyone optimized probably for cost to get less lanes, so smaller motherboards. You know, yeah, I mean, it's been happening over time for a long time. But yeah, it's crazy to think like everything depends on the GPU now too. It's like, you know, everything, no matter what you want to do. I mean, you know, when you think of AI, when you think of, you know, Bitcoin, when you think of video rendering, you know, creation, it's like everything depends on the video card. So, and everyone's competing for them. At least with the 5080, I think the 5080 was, you know, that what NVIDIA did was basically say, no, this one's specifically for gaming. They basically, you know, gave it gaming performance like the previous generation for the cost, I think, less than the previous generation, but without the CUDA cores for the ML and AI. So I think it could, I mean, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but it was a smart thing to do for NVIDIA to say, nah, like this one's for gaming, like, if you're going to do AI, this is not the one to get. And so I think that kind of segmented their audience. I wish they would go wider. I wish they would go wider, you know, say, hey, here's the creator edition. Here's the AI edition or Bitcoin edition, whatever, call it whatever you want. And here's the gamer edition, and then optimize for those things. Honestly, it's hard to discern between media creator and gamer. Cause I mean, really you just need, you know, GPU, you need that encoder. Right? You don't need a 3D aspect, but you need that encoder and you need video RAM, you know? And so you don't need any, well, the funny thing is you still need some AI capabilities even for creation today. You know, if you think of Photoshop, when you say like remove or blur or anything like that, I mean, they've been doing it for a long time, right? And so that's offloaded to your GPU if you have one, you know, is to be able to do Gaussian blurs or even replace or, you know, auto select this person or cut this person out of the photo. So, you know, those are still needed even outside of video if you're just doing, you know, static art. But yeah, I don't know. I wish they would. I don't know. I don't know what they.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think my pushback would be, or my response would be on that would be, I think, especially with the GPU scenario, literally at the creation of the hardware, there's a limitation. From what I understand, I can't recall the company's name, but there's one particular company that can do the fabrication of the it's not a CPU, it's like the chip on the GPU card. And forgive my lack of familiarity because I really haven't played with much GPUs, honestly. But from my understanding, there's a limitation on that because there's such a demand and there's only one, you know, tried and true company who can do this well, and there's a bottleneck. And so maybe the lack of SKUs, which is kind of what you're hinting at, is like you want a gamer edition, you want an AI edition, a creator edition. The lack of SKUs might be, especially now, is the pressure on the ability to crank these things out. That might be it. I would think like maybe you just need levels, like they have like the 70, the 80, and the 90. It's like, well, the 70 is for budgetary, less needs, and the 90's got AI, it's got gaming, it's got creator in it. I kind of feel like you can blend those worlds. It's like almost tiers of type. I want to do gaming, I want to do AI, and I want to do creation stuff. So the 90 may be better for you. And the 90 guarantees you'll have 24 gigs of VRAM or more, or maybe you can add more to it. And the 80 sort of puts you in this VRAM scenario with certain technologies in it. And the 70 is budgetary and more limiting, but still quite capable for dedicated GPU scenarios. You know, I don't know. As an outsider who's just learning, that's maybe how I'd skew it. You know, that's probably how I would think about it personally.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. It's just odd now though, because this is the first time I think that I've seen where they're like, yeah, the 80 is specifically for gaming because we're taking out a lot of the AI and ML stuff, you know, which was, I think it was probably a good move on their part to say, nope, gamers, you're going to get this card. You know, this is the one to get. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Yeah, it is for sure. And honestly, on media creation, you could get by. You could get by with a lot less than you think. A lot less than you think. And I will say, like, just doing media creation a lot of the times you don't even need to make like transcode anything or convert anything until the end. You know, you just have to have good encoders in a fast network to be able to process that video, you know? And so I edit in 4K. I used to, when I had a worse machine, I would create proxies. That's kind of insider term for transcode it down to a lower resolution so I can edit at a lower resolution because my machine's not that strong. But nowadays it's like you can get by with surprisingly very little for content creation. There's some people who even just use the iGPU, and that's enough to be able to do the encoding and decoding as they edit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to link out to your building my ultimate Linux workstation video, but because I said let's create a creator PC, give me your spec list. Give me the motherboard, the CPU. Give me a rough build list for this this machine you built.
Oh, the one I built in that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh man, I'd have to kind of look at my notes.
You don't know from heart?
Oh man.
Come on, Tim.
Dude, that was like 3-4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago.
Oh,
man.
that was like yesterday, basically.
I'm like on to 5 more things besides that. And I'm terrible at specs, but I can tell you probably off the top of my head. I know it's an Intel Core Ultra. I think it's 7 or 5. It's Core Ultra 5, not the latest. And that was really just for budgetary constraints because I didn't see much use in going with the top tier, which is totally against what I've done my whole entire life. I've always been buy an i7, i9, the max one, and figure it out later. Then I went with an Asus motherboard. I couldn't tell you the model name, but I went
Asus Prime 7890 PY5.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got your video up. I got your back.
Probably pull it up too. Corsair RAM. I know I went with Corsair RAM. DDR5. I think it was. I don't remember the speed. 7,000 maybe. Now I'm getting making up numbers.
We'll use your videos as a backlog. I mean, we don't have to be perfectly accurate. I was just curious, like, can we build a creator? Like, I shared my spec with you only because I had it listed and I've been dreaming about it and thinking about it and deliberating and hemming and hawing, as people know that I do whenever I think about, change or something new. I write it down and I marinate for a while on a lot of choices that I make in my life. And building a multi-$1,000 machine is not easy from the dollar point. So like, I'm going to think about this thing for a while. I'm going to survey my favorite creators. You're one of them, and see what their choices are and compare and contrast. And the only change I'm making personally is this, this Core Ultra consideration, but maybe AMD. So I thought maybe you could rattle off your dream list, so to speak, for your workstation.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of built it with that. I'd probably bump it up if it's my dream list. I mean, if it's my dream list, it's a CPU that doesn't even exist that, I have a workstation level processor. But for my Linux workstation, yeah, it was a Core Ultra 5, which I think is great. It's great for multitasking. It's great for coding. It's great for compiling. It's great for the things I'm going to do as a developer, right? Is it the best for gaming? No, I think we talked about that earlier. But it can still do it great. It's just not the leader in that space anymore like they used to be, but great for multitasking. It's DDR5, the fastest DDR5 I can find. Motherboard to me, again, doesn't really matter. I generally don't want Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on it, but it comes with every single one. I need 4 slots for DDR5, and it supports up to 192 gigabytes, which is such a weird number. And at the same time, now RAM kits come in weird numbers now to get to that 192. Weird times we're in. Yeah, and then it's, I already talked about this, but it's super fast NVMe drives. For me, that's, Samsung 980s. It's the Pros. And then one's going to be for OS and one's going to be for everything else, And then I want 10 gig networking because I have a 10 gig network backbone, even though I don't even need it. Like, honestly, if this is my dev workstation, I don't need it at all. I'll stick with the 2.5 gigabit that comes on it, and that'll be fine because I'm rarely going to transfer things, to and from this machine.
Yeah, you'll never saturate that.
No, it's for writing code, man. And I mean, maybe models when I download stuff, but no, not even that because my home network is gigabit. Sorry, my ISP is gigabit. So I won't put any spinning hard drives in anything I ever buy anymore except for my NAS. So that's off the table. And even NAS, I'm kind of like still questioning it. Like, why are we still using spinning drives? I think
because they're big.
I know, but why?
Because they're big and less expensive than something else that's big and really expensive.
Yeah, but I mean, are we? Yeah, I don't know. That one, I kind of feel like, is this people like?
Is this real? Are
there big hard drive?
They're holding us back on purpose. You think it's the conspiracy?
Big storage. I don't know.
Big storage.
Big storage is out to get us. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's like, do we need to stay on spinning? I get it that there's more capacity, but could we make that more capacity on SSDs? Is it possible? Yes, it's physically possible. Is it cost effective? I don't know. Maybe if we did it more, I don't know. But anyway, spinning drives. Well, I heard from someone that spinning drives will never go away because they'll always be more dense, right? And they'll always have more capacity. But that, I feel like that doesn't always have to be true. But I don't know. Maybe that's me not understanding flash and NAND flash and all that. So
what do you gain though from, I mean, obviously there's challenges with rust disk because you got, vibrations can, cause read write errors. You got lots of things that can happen. But generally, if you have a pretty good machine and a good build, those aren't true challenges. They can be challenges if you're not proactive in making them not challenges. And if the density is always there, and you really don't need, maybe you need more than, 6 gigabit per second per disk? Yep. That's usually what it is? Like if you have a decent backbone on your PCIe lanes, then you'll be hard pressed to saturate that, like in a lot of cases, unless you're doing some major transfers. And maybe your Homelab is super enterprise and maybe mine is less. But like the main thing I'm moving on my network is Plex movies. And it's usually when I rip it to the NAS and never again. And then obviously whenever it comes off those disks, to stream, but I don't need that level of saturation. So discs for me work.
Yeah. For me, it's heat, it's
simplicity.
Noise.
Heat, size,
noise, power. I could do away with most of my fans. Like, and they're loud in general. They make noises.
True.
Like my flash SSDs make zero noise. They give off almost zero heat. They take up a quarter of the space, and so because of that, like my NAS is, for you because it needs to fit these drives. And, I don't know. I wish we were just all SSD, all flash storage.
One day, Tim, one day.
I know. But it's nothing more than me just like kind of wanting to be done with it. And for those reasons, but they're efficient, they're large, and they're cheap. So.
What's left to say? I got to go in like 2 minutes here. I got a hard stop personally. I'd love to keep just going deeper if we could. We'll have to do this more frequently, something like that. Who knows? Maybe more than once a year. I'd guest on Techno Tim Talks, but I don't think that's your style. You don't do that there. Do you have guests? I don't know.
Yeah, I can absolutely have guests. Yeah,
I'll geek out with you.
Yeah, it's usually on Twitch. I mean, I kind of been switching stuff up a little bit. I don't know. Twitch accidentally banned me twice.
I saw that,
dude. And I'm
the
like,
API,
dude. Yeah, I'm kind of like over it in my head because I'm like, really, like if I got to find like that gave me the opportunity to stream on YouTube Live and realize like the opportunity there, and the audience there.
Well, you're already there, so you could just like tap into your existing subscriber base.
Exactly. Whereas Twitch, I'm it's hey guys, come check out my Twitch, and
that's why I don't hang out with you there. Honestly, I would probably at least lurk in your lives. Whereas I'm not going to go to Twitch personally.
I get it. If you don't type in that URL and you don't go there or have someone to watch, you just don't go there. It's just not in your routine ever. And so I totally get it. It's just like, that's kind of where I started. I started out live streaming before YouTube. And it was on Twitch and it was playing games. So, I just have a soft spot in my heart for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have done some cool stuff there, but whenever you disrupt somebody's normal habit and flow, you give them a reason to ponder change. And sometimes that means the negotiating goes the opposite way and they leave your space. And so maybe Twitch is in your past and YouTube lives are in your future.
Yeah.
But either way, I'd love to talk to you more. As it makes sense. I think we can geek out quite a bit about this stuff, and I think it's fun, really honest. I think it's fun to just dig into it with somebody else because, as you can tell, I make my dream lists and I ponder them myself, and I might pay attention to people, but I'm not having a conversation with anybody really deeply about my choices or why I'm making these choices, you know, and it's just, maybe after this conversation, I might be okay with having both Windows and Mac in my life. Maybe.
I think you'll be okay. I think you'll be okay. And then maybe your kids one day will have a gaming machine. They'll be like, yeah, now I get a gaming machine. Dad,
give me the hand-me-down. Yeah. This got the 4090 in there, Dad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Or the 3090. What'd you do, Dad? The 3090? Really? You couldn't get the 4090? Well, son, let me tell you what happened, okay?
Yeah.
AI changed everything, okay? And GPUs were hard to find and super expensive.
Yeah, back in my day, we didn't have this AI thing like stealing all of our GPUs. It was Bitcoin.
That's right. That's right. Well, Tim, it's been fun geeking out with you, man. Thank you for hanging out for a bit. And anything left? Anything else?
No, just
any self-promotion, any plugs, anything.
I mean, no, just
I'll link it all up for you. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah. Thank you. No, I appreciate being here. I appreciate the time to talk about it. You know, I say this on my live stream on Twitch, like, you know, I rarely get to talk about this kind of thing to people in real life. You know, it's either on my live show or to people in chat. And so it's nice to be able to talk to someone who understands what I'm talking about. And so I appreciate it, man.
A real human. I'm not AI. If you thought I was, I'm not. This is real. I'm the real.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
All right. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.